Belly fat is super easy to gain and quite hard to lose, but in this video I'm going to show you how to lose the belly fat before the summer and my tips and tricks to actually speed this entire process up. But before we go any further into the video, we have to understand that there are two types of belly fat. Subcutaneous body fat, which is a fat just covering the abdominal muscles. The second type of fat is that visceral fat. This is the fat that's deeper, behind the abdominals, that's actually covering the organs and can cause those adverse health conditions. So in this video, we're going to walk through how to lose the belly fat and back this up with science and different methods that you can use to make sure you go away from this video and you know how to lose the belly fat before the summer. So why is it so hard to actually lose the belly fat? Now, well, scientifically speaking, belly fat is a little bit more metabolically active than other stored fat. Now, we're not going to lose it from doing crunches and planks, unfortunately. However, exercise does play a role. So you do want to make sure that you have resistance training a few times a week, as that's going to help you lose the body fat that you want to lose. Now, the real way to make sure that you're dropping body fat consistently is to get yourself into a calorie deficit and be in that calorie deficit for an extended period of time, which is why you find that the short, quick fix fads, they don't actually help you lose belly fat, because you won't be able to be in that deficit for long enough because they're not very sustainable at all. So you want to make sure you get yourself in that calorie deficit. Now, what is a calorie deficit? Now, what you want to understand here is you are an engine. You burn a certain amount of fuel each day based on your metabolism, based on your activity levels, based on your training sessions. You as an individual burn a certain amount of fuel each day. Now, this energy expenditure is called your TDEE, your total daily energy expenditure. That is how many calories you burn as an individual each day. Now, to simply work out your TDEE, which is a super important number when it comes to working at your deficit, is you're going to multiply your body weight in pounds by 15. So take your weight in pounds, times that by 15, and that's going to give you roughly how many calories you burn each day. Now, simply put, to be in a deficit is anything less than this number. So I would start at around 500 calories less than this number to put yourself in a pretty decent deficit to start losing body fat. So the calculations will be on screen, how to work that out. But once you have this number, that's where your fat loss journey starts, because that is that calorie deficit, that very important number. Now, the easiest way to put yourself into this calorie deficit is by making some adjustments to your diet. Now, I wouldn't suggest cutting out carbs, and I wouldn't suggest doing these very short-term restrictive diets because it's not sustainable. You might be able to put yourself in a deficit for a matter of weeks, but you'll fall off track, end up undoing that work, end up eating more calories than what you were before, gaining the body fat back, and that's just not how we want to go about this. But you do want to make sure that you are in that deficit consistently. Now, what I would suggest doing is taking a look at your foods as a whole, and 80% of your foods want to be from whole foods, want to be from foods that ran, swam, grew out of the ground. It's a really good way of looking at it. Now, 80% of your foods from these foods, and then 20% want to be your treats, your snacks, foods that you enjoy, because balance is important. You want to actually enjoy the diet, because that enjoyment is going to lead to greater levels of consistency. That consistency is going to lead to greater results, and then ultimately, because you've done it in a way that you can stay consistent with, you can sustain the results once you've got there for the rest of your life. Then within the diet, we want to make sure that we emphasize protein intake. This is very, very important. Carbs and fats aren't as important as protein and calories, so we won't touch on those too much. But what I want to make sure you do is eat a high protein diet, because this is going to help you preserve muscle mass. It can help you build lean muscle when you're in this dieting phase. So you want to eat around 1 gram of protein for every pound of body weight that you have. And as a 200-pound individual, I'd eat 200 grams of protein. If you're 150 pounds, you'd eat 150 grams of protein. Now, don't be worried if you think this is a lot of protein. Really simply, when you break it up throughout the day, it can be very straightforward. Like one protein shake with 2 scoops of protein is around 50 grams of protein. So if I have that, I then literally have 150 grams of protein to consume throughout the entire day. And if I spread that up into 3 to 4 meals, it gets quite easy to do. So don't be scared. But a high protein diet is very important when looking to lose body fat and build lean muscle. Now, regarding losing that visceral fat, that dangerous fat that's internal, we want to make sure that we are in that deficit long enough to actually lose that. So if you are in that deficit, you'll start losing body fat from around your body. Then if you're in that deficit for a long enough period of time, you'll start to lose the body fat around here, your belly fat, and your visceral fat. But to take this one step further, a study from Rosquist and colleagues actually showed that an increase in visceral fat comes from consuming more saturated fats than polyunsaturated fats. So effectively speaking, if you eat a higher saturated fat diet, you have more risk of gaining that visceral fat. So highly saturated fat foods like cookies and pastries can lead to a larger increase in visceral fat, as opposed to polyunsaturated fats like things like nuts, seeds, and olive oils. So now we've discussed the diet part of losing the belly fat, let's move on to the training part. So resistance training in a fat loss phase is very, very important, because what we actually find is if you don't do resistance training when you're looking to lose body fat, you end up having that kind of like skinny fat look, where you look quite weak, you look quite skinny, you don't have any real definition. So you want to make sure that when you're looking to lose the belly fat and lose the body fat, you resistance train at least 3 times per week. With our members, we look at our metabolic mastery method, which is 3 sessions, 45 minutes of resistance training, short, sharp, impactful sessions. But you want to make sure you resistance train so that you have that defined look, that lean look that us guys want. So make sure that when you're going through a fat loss phase, you are resistance training a few times per week to help build that lean muscle. Now, some research from Dr. Eric Trexler actually shows that those who don't resistance train and end up losing muscle during a fat loss phase, because if you aren't resistance training, you will end up losing some muscle during a fat loss phase. Those that lose muscle actually have an increase in hunger. So those people who aren't resistance training and lose the muscle tissue when they're dieting have an increase in hunger, which then has a consequent effect on actually over-consuming calories, leading to you actually regaining that body fat back. So it's very important that we resistance train when we're looking to lose body fat. Now, a lot of men also think that they need to do cardio when looking to lose body fat. Now, this is something that I'm a firm believer you do not need to do hours and hours of cardio to lose body fat. Focus your time in the gym on those resistance sessions, okay? Make sure you're training, 90% of the effort you're putting into the gym is going into building lean tissue. But what we do work with our members on is actually increasing NEAT, their non-exercise activity. Okay, so things like walking to the store, parking the car away and walking further to the store, taking steps rather than lifts and escalators, because that is gonna have an impact on overall expenditure, which is gonna help put you in that calorie deficit, okay? So you do not need to do hours of cardio, but increasing some daily movement by just walking around a little bit more will help you lose body fat. And also by doing high intensity cardio, that also leads to an increase in hunger, which then means, again, we're probably gonna over-consume calories. So you wanna make sure that you do is some low intensity cardio and pair that with your resistance training sessions for maximum impact when it comes to losing body fat and building lean muscle. Now, one other key component when it comes to losing body fat and getting in shape is your sleep. Now, what I see with the guys that we work with who are pretty time constrained, high performers, executives, guys running businesses, they actually don't focus as much on sleep as they should. What they actually do is because they're working so much, they actually cut back on their sleep to try and get those extra hours of working, which then has a negative impact on their ability to lose body fat. Now, a recent groundbreaking study actually shows that a lack of sleep can lead to an increase in belly fat. In this study, 2 groups of people were tested. One group slept for 9 hours, one group only slept for 4 hours. The group who were underslept and only slept for 4 hours actually had a significant increase in hunger levels, which led to them over-consuming calories by 300 calories more than the group that slept for 9 hours per day. Now, this is where it gets really interesting. The group who slept for 4 hours per day actually saw an 8% increase in subcutaneous body fat. In comparison to the group who slept for 9 hours per day, they only saw a 4% increase. Now, where it gets even more interesting is the group that only slept for 4 hours per night saw an 11% increase in overall visceral fat, which is that dangerous fat which can lead to those adverse health implications. And the group who slept for 9 hours per night saw a 0% increase in visceral fat. So ultimately, this study shows that there is a link to a lack of sleep leading to an increase in hunger, leading to an increase in overconsumption of calories, which then consequently has an effect on fat gain around the midsection, around including that visceral fat. So my suggestion when it comes to sleep is getting at least 7 hours per night and looking to reduce things like blue light before you go to bed, things like phones, screens, laptops, reducing that blue light so you can actually improve the quality of your sleep as well as the quantity. Now, my final key tip here to losing that stubborn belly fat is to focus on a longer time horizon and being consistent over that period. Now, the reason that so many men fail to actually lose the belly fat is because they opt for very restrictive, quick fix approaches, fads, cutting out carbs, keto diets, and all these things that only last a matter of weeks or maximum a matter of months. And that isn't long enough to lose the belly fat. You might see some drop on the scales and you might lose some body fat. To actually lose that belly fat, you need to be consistent over a longer time horizon. So you need to opt for an approach that is far more sustainable and suited to your real life. So you can stick at it for longer than a few months. And the reason that our members inside our Metabolic Mastery Method are able to get those incredible results that you've seen is because the approach is suited for their real life. We take into consideration their work, their family life, their schedule, how busy they are, and build a system that makes sense for them. So not only do they get results efficiently, but they get results sustainably so that they can maintain them forever because that system has been built around them. Now, if you want more information on the Metabolic Mastery Method, there's a video below. If you just click that link, I'll walk you through the whole method in a lot more detail so that you can actually go and start applying it from today. So click that link below. Any questions, feel free to DM me on Instagram @Harry Knights Coaching. I really appreciate you watching. Make sure you subscribe to the channel and I'll see you in the next video.